أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. We continue with verse number 4 of Surah An-Nisa. وَآتُوا النِّسَاءَ صَدُقَاتِهِنَّ نِحْلَةً فَإِن تِبْنَ لَكُمْ عن شيء منه نفسا فكلوه هنيئا مريئا. And give women their dowries as an obligation. Of course, dowry is not exactly the translation of mahr. However, that is what usually people translate mahr to be. But if they remit anything of it of their own accord, then consume it as something lawful and wholesome. Now, we discussed the first part of the verse. However, something left from the first part, and that is this address, وَآتُوا النِّسَاء, give women. This is addressed to whom? To husbands or to the guardians of women? Now here, Tafsir of Surah gives two different views from different early exegetes. From Ibn Abbas and Qatada and some others, he narrates that it is al-murad bihi al-azwaj. This is addressed to the husbands. Atun nisa'a saduqatihinna nihla means the husbands should give their wives or to-be wives their mahr as a gift. However, some other commentators have said that this is khitabun lil awliya, to guardians of the ladies who, of course, were under the guardianship of their fathers or whoever, that they should not take the mahr for themselves. It is something Allah has granted to women, and therefore they have to give it to them. However, he says that awwalul aqwala aqwa, the first view is, of course, stronger because the whole context is talking to the people who would like to marry, to the husbands, and to the rights of women on the husband. So that is the most probable meaning of it. وَآتُوا النِّسَاءَ صَدُقَاتِهِنَّ نِحْلَةً, O you husbands, you who want to marry ladies, you have to give their mahr as a gift. Then it says, فَإِن تِبْنَ لَكُمْ عَنْ شَيْءٍ مِّنْهُ نَفْسًا. Now, some thought that after this mahr is given, it is not permissible under any condition to be remitted, to be, for example, given away to the husband, to be somehow forgone by the ladies. Here it says that if they do this of their own accord, with their own willing, then there is no problem. فَإِن طِبْنَ لَكُمْ عَنْ شَيْءٍ مِّنْهُ نَفْسًا. طَابَ عَنْ شَيْءٍ means that someone does something willingly. And طَابَ عَنْ شَيْءٍ نَفْسًا means from the bottom of their hearts, from their own free choice and understanding that they want to give this to the husbands, they forgo. And that is what, of course, the verse means. تَبْنَ لَكُمْ عَنْ شَيْءٍ مِّنْهُ نَفْسًا is like ذَاقَ بِهَذَا الْأَمْرِ ذَرْعًا. This is the construction. قَرَّتْ بِهِ عَيْنًا. So عَيْنًا نَفْسًا here is tamiz, is something which clarifies what do we mean by taba. So it means if they voluntarily, willingly, they forgo, then they could, of course, do that, and you could take it without any harm. Now, the significance of this term here is that one should not force his wife to give. So here, فَإِن So here, فَإِن تِبْنَ لَكُمْ عَنْ شَيْءٍ مِّنْهُ نَفْسًا means if they voluntarily, out of their own choice and volition, give it to you. And the significance of it is that one should not coerce his wife by any means. I mean, there are different means of coercion or forcing. It is not allowed. And if they somehow take the money or do not give the mah, then that is something unlawful that they have used. Now, some examples of coercion that are used, and in other parts of the Quran they have been alluded to as well, is, for example, the wife is intimidated or humiliated in a sense or in a way that she says, okay, I give up my mahr, I don't want it. Or she's pressed and rendered helpless, and he doesn't have anyone to somehow advocate her. Or she's deceived or tempted by promises or something like that. That's, again, is an instance of forcing them. Or she experiences violence and misbehavior. In other verses of the Quran, it has been mentioned as well. وَلَا تَعْضُلُوهُنَّ لِتَأْخُذُوا مَا آتَيْتُمُوهُنَّ. Do not somehow put them in a situation that they want to give up what you have given them. Overall, the verse conveys a sense of caution in this matter by adding this condition, فَإِن تِبْنَ لَكُمْ عَنْ شَيْءٍ مِّنْهُ نَفْسًا. This nafsan is very important here. From the bottom of their hearts, they do it. Then, of course, that is lawful. فَكُلُوهُ هَنِيئًا مَرِيئًا. Honey is something which is easy to digest, so it's pleasant to eat. This is honey. Mari is about drinking. Some drink that if you drink, you feel satisfied and you don't feel any harm. But when both of them used together, hani and maria, it means that it is not harmful, and it is wholesome. So it's enjoyable, and it is pleasant, and there is no harm in it. Mentioning both qualities implies that taking and using this money involves no pain, no problem, no chastisement, no bad outcome, actually. So this is why both are used together. فَكُلُوهُ هَنِيئًا مَرِيئًا. Verse number 5 is giving a caution before verse number 6, which says, give the orphans their property when they are mature. It says, وَلَا تُؤْتُوا السُّفَهَاءَ أَمْوَالَكُمُ الَّتِي جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ قِيَامًا وَارْزُقُوهُم فِيهَا وَاكْسُوهُمْ وَقُولُوا لَهُمْ قَوْلًا مَعْرُوفًا. Do not give the feeble-minded your property, which Allah has assigned you to manage. Provide for them out of it, and clothe them and speak to them honorable words. Now, this is one way of translating this verse, that أَمْوَالَكُمُ الَّتِي جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ قِيَامًا means the property which Allah has assigned you to manage. But this is not, grammatically, this is not a very accurate translation. A better translation is that do not give to feeble-minded or to the fools your property which Allah has made your support. جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ قِيَامًا. And this is what most of the exegetes, almost all the exegetes, have actually understood the verse to mean. Provide for them out of it, and clothe them, and speak to them honorable and kind words. Now, again, we have this question here, the question that we had in the previous verse. Who is the addressee of this وَلَا تُؤْتُوا السُّفَهَاءَ أموالكم. Is it about the guardians of the orphans, or this is a general address to everyone? And as-sufaha, the feeble-minded, is it about the orphans who are feeble-minded, or generally to everyone in the society? So we have this disagreement of views here again. If we say لا تؤتوا السفهاء أموالكم التي جعل الله لكم قياما, as an address to the society in general, it includes the orphans as well. And because the verses are talking about the orphan, the context then tells us that although this is a general ruling, however, of course, it is related to what we were discussing before about the orphans. And amwalakum, does it mean, again, your property or the property of the orphans? Do not give it to them, or generally your property, do not give them to the feeble-minded who do not know, who are fools in transaction, do not know how to spend money. Now, if your property here pertains to social wealth in general, or is addressed generally to everyone, that you should not give to someone who is under your care, whether it's your wife, your children, an orphan, or anyone. If you give it to them, then of course they will squander it. They do not know how to spend it, and they just waste it. So it's just amwalukum here is a general term. However, if it returns to the orphans, why the amwal of the orphans is mentioned as the amwal or property of the people who are addressed? وَلَا تُؤْتُوا السُّفَهَاءَ أَمْوَالَكُمْ, your property. Well, it's your property because it's under your care. You are entrusted with that, and you have to give it back to them one day, or you have to use them for their expenditure, and this is something which may make it as amwalukum. However, if we take it to be general, وَلَا تُؤْتُوا السُّفَهَاءَ أَمْوَالَكُمْ, then from the context we understand that, of course, the orphans are one very important instance of that. The verse certainly is talking about the right and correct management of the property which is under one possession, or the property of the orphans as a very outstanding instance, which is under the care of the guardian. If you find them not to be able to manage, you should not give it to them. And this, of course, has been mentioned because people were thinking that as soon as the orphans were matured, they have to give their money back to them, no matter what they do to it. The verse says, no, that is not the case. You have to be careful. You have to be careful about how this is going to be spent. You are responsible. This responsibility is not discharged unless you know that they are able to use the property and money in the correct way. Now, أَمْوَالَكُمُ الَّتِي جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ قِيَامًا. This is a very beautiful expression about amwal, property. Property is means of your sustenance. Allah has made it a qiyam for you. Qiyam, qawam, qiyam, all have the same meaning. And all have been used in the Quran in the same sense. Something by which you stand. Something by which you sustain yourself. This is qiyam. جَعَلَ اللَّهُ الْكَعْبَةَ الْبَيْتَ الْحَرَامِ قِيَامًا لِلنَّاسِ, means قَوَامًا لِلنَّاسِ, means it is support for people in their religion. It is something that, of course, all the Muslims go there once a year, and this is a splendid splendor for the religion. People come to know each other and they feel as one ummah. So this is qiyaman linnas. Ja'ala Allahu al-Ka'bata al-Bayt al-Haram qiyaman linnas. Here it says again, your property is qiyam for you. About qiyam, Allah mentions that in Surah An-Nahl, innani Surah Al-An'am, innani hadani rabbi ila siratin mustaqim, dinan qiyaman. It means dinan qiwaman or qiyaman. A religion which is support for human journey towards God. So these are the different usages of qiyam. All means something by which you can stand, you can continue, you can journey. So the property, this is very interesting because usually we somehow ironically we say that dunya has no value. What is important is akhirat. However, wealth and money is our support in this journey towards akhirah. Ja'alallahu lakum qiyamah. This is a very beautiful description of property used for the sake of akhirah. Ja'alallahu lakum qiyamah. So as Kaaba upholds the religion, as Deen upholds the path towards God, the property sustains people, covering their material needs in this world. So it is very important. Now, even though one should give others what belongs to them, this is what the verse tells us. Even though we have to give them, it belongs to them, but we do not, of course, we cannot be free of responsibility unless we make sure that they could be entrusted with their property. Certainly, of course, this should not be a pretext for people not giving their property back. However, it is between us and Allah. He knows it, that what we do with it. So the guardian should keep the property, provide for them as long as they need, and if they find mental maturity, they give it back. Now, of course, for feeble-minded and the fools, the as-sufaha, this may continue until the end of their lives. So the guardian then is responsible. However, although you do not give the money back to them, however, وَارْزُقُوهُمْ فِيهَا وَاكْسُوهُمْ وَارْزُقُوهُمْ فِيهَا وَاكْسُوهُمْ, and provide for them out of it or in it. I mentioned the difference later on, and clothe them. وَارْزُقُوهُمْ فِيهَا وَاكْسُوهُمْ. Of course, وَارْزُقُوهُمْ, provide for them. It should naturally include clothing as well, because clothing is part of the provision. However, maybe why this is mentioned specifically, وَارْزُقُوهُمْ فِيهَا وَاكْسُوهُمْ, why this is specifically mentioned, the clothing, is because people sometimes think that the fools or the feeble-minded people, they shouldn't care about their clothing. I mean, they don't understand. They do not feel shy. They do not feel ashamed if, for example, the clothing is not suitable. So the only thing is that they provide them with food, and the clothing is not important. However, as we will see later on, the honor of such people must be preserved. This is very important. This is something we learn from this verse. The honor of these people who are feeble-minded or sufaha, fools in transaction, things like that, their honor must be preserved. So waksuhum is emphatically mentioned here after warzuquhum, that you have to keep their honor in the society as well. So overall, it means that one who is in charge of the wealth of fools and feeble-minded, should protect their property and pay for their needs. First of all, physical needs, biological needs, and social needs to keep their honor. Now, the term used here, وَارْزُقُوهُمْ فِيهَا, not وَارْزُقُوهُم مِنْهَا. Minha means from it, fiha means in it. Now, if it's وَارْزُقُوهُم مِنْهَا means, okay, keep the money and pay for them, provide for them from that money until it finishes. However, fiha means you should not keep that to stand still. You have to actually work with it as you work with own capital. This is the true care for their property. You do business with it, and from the profit of that business, you feed them and you clothe them. So, وَارْزُقُوهُمْ فِيهَا, not minha. This is what most of exegetes have mentioned, the difference between fiha and minha, and why naturally it should have been وَارْزُقُوهُمْ minha. Why fiha is used is because that the property should generate income, and from the income you have to provide for them in terms of food and clothing. And the final sentence of the verse is very beautiful, and this teaches us a great lesson. And especially in our modern day, in modern society, these things are very important. In old societies, these were not important at all. And we see that how the Quran is actually emphasizing on these things. قُولُوا لَهُمْ قَوْلًا مَعْرُوفًا. Now, in Tafsir al-Kashif, Mughniya says that it's very remarkable that the verse does not neglect the psychological needs of these disadvantaged people. It's not just to feed them or clothe them. They have to be treated honorably. This is the important thing. So the verse does not only address their physical needs, it also addresses what they need in terms of honor, in terms of affection, in terms of interaction. وَقُولُوا لَهُمْ قَوْلًا مَعْرُوفًا. Ma'ruf may mean kind, may mean honorable, good, something which is acceptable in the society amongst ourselves. The same should go for them. So one is who's in charge of their life and expenses should not ignore that. Usually when one is in charge of someone else in terms of life expenses, they think that, okay, we give their expenses and that's all. And sometimes treating our relatives, our parents, our children is like that as well. We think, okay, I'm giving them money. No, that's not enough. Giving money is not enough. It should be an honorable relationship, not just paying money and deserting the person. And exactly the same sentence which is used about parents is used here about these feeble-minded. This is really thought-provoking. وَقَضَى in Surah Al-Isra, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا إِمَّا يَبْلُغَنَّ عِنْدَكَ الْكِبَرَ أَحَدُهُمَا أَوْ كِلَاهُمَا فَلَا تَقُل لَهُمَا أُفٍّ وَلَا تَنْهَرْهُمَا وَقُل لَهُمَا قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا. This قَوْلًا كَرِيمًا is the same as قَوْلًا مَعْرُوفًا. The same thing. So, it is a very delicate issue that the verse is taking. Now, in Tibyan, he mentions a couple of other meanings for قُولُوا لَهُمْ قَوْلًا مَعْرُوفًا. One, in case of feeble-minded individuals who are not part of your dependence and do not receive anything from you, speak kind words to them. So he says, it's taken for granted. Those who are under your care, you have to certainly honor them and you have to speak kindly to them. But even for those who are not under your care, those individuals who are not part of your dependents, you have to talk honorably to them as well. So again, it goes back to the type of treatment that we give to the mentally retarded or something like that, mentally disabled. The other meaning that he mentions is that in cases when the property belongs to the fools and you are their guardian, tell them encouraging words. Like, for example, they give you, they tell you, why you do not give me my money? Why you do not entrust me? You say, as soon as you are mature, I will hand it over to you, inshallah. Soon I will do that, inshallah. Do not tell them that you do not understand, you cannot deal properly with your property. So this is another. So do not give it to them, but قولوا لهم قولا معروفا. And the third meaning that he mentions is that قولا معروفا is not simply kind words. It includes religious teachings as well. You teach them. Although it may be difficult for them to understand and difficult for you to express, but you have to teach them whatever they need in terms of religion. In Al-Manar, he mentions another meaning. He says it means teaching and instruction in general, not only, of course, religious teachings. You should help and facilitate for them their mental growth, to understand things, to become independent. And this is what, of course, many schools nowadays are set up for this cause. Overall, I mean, this is fascinating. I mean, the way the verse talks about as-sufaha, وَلَا تُؤْتُوا السُّفَهَاءَ أَمْوَالَكُمْ, suddenly you should not give them the property to squander. They do not know what is it for, how they should spend it. You do not, but of course you have to preserve their honor. Now, one other thing that we can understand is that although on the one hand this verse limits the rights and freedom of the feeble-minded, and they are blocked from using their property, in return, the verse, of course, put this responsibility on the guardians, that you have to not only provide for them, you have to speak kindly to them. You have to make them grow. You have to help them to learn. So their limitation, of course, is accompanied by a right. And usually every limitation is accompanied by a right. And this can be an insightful instruction in family relations as well. And also with regards to our relation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is our guardian, certainly. So Allah Mawlakum, He is our guardian. And sometimes He restricts us in certain aspects, but He compensates for it in other aspects as well. One other thing to be mentioned here, just to finish discussing the verse, is that it's reported from Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam, and many early exegetes have said something in this line, but of course with their different understandings. That Imam al-Baqir says, fools are women and children if one learns that his wife or child is feeble-minded and spoils money, he is not allowed to give them authority over his property. Now, this has been mentioned in other narrations as well, and the early exegetes have taken this unconditionally, that women are feeble-minded and you should not give them. But what the Imam is saying here, that yes, sometimes those who are under your care, your wife or children, they may be feeble-minded. In that case, you are responsible for how they spend, for giving them their property. So what is meant here in the verse is about individuals at the family level. It applies to anyone who's under one's guardianship and is incapable for proper financial management. So if you refer to many old tafsir, you see that they have said that these refers to wives and children. And that is not the case, certainly. It is just one instance of the general rule that the verse is dealing with. Okay, that is the end of our discussion about verse number 5, and inshallah we will continue with verse number 6 in our next session. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.